Welcome into the 2024 fantasy review for the Tennessee Titans, our second to last team. Yeah, just so you know, we're recording this August 25th. Again, you're probably watching this, I think, on like the 29th, 30th. So there's not much that's going to change with this Titans team. I believe they are they're currently playing their last preseason game. So hopefully no one gets hurt there. All the numbers you're going to see are in half PPR, the ADP, points per game, all that good stuff. And here we are with the Titans. Again, quite an interesting team, in my opinion. If I had to choose a couple teams that are going to like really surprise people in terms of how good they are offensively, my two are Seattle and actually Tennessee. I think they have a modern passing game now. Yeah. They haven't had that basically in the history of the Titans, but they got Brian Callahan coming in. They're going to throw the ball a lot. Trust me, they are. And you get interesting observations and comments about Will Levis. Some people think he's terrible and he's no good and he has no pocket presence, and you can kind of see that. Other people think he could have a Josh Allen like career arc of just like, oh, this guy's a bust after the first 2 years, and then boom, it clicks, right? PFF had him as the number 2 quarterback in that draft class. He shot up pre-draft, betting odds to be the number 1 overall pick there. I think because of Reddit, but anyways, Will Levis, he started last year after he took over for Ryan Tannehill. He had some moments. If you remember that first game that he played, everyone was like, oh my God, Will Levis. He had 4 touchdowns. It was like, holy crap. And he threw 4 more after that. So
the rest of the year.
Yeah. He has some sneaky rushing upside. He didn't really show it too much last year. He had 2 games with over 15 yards or 15 yards or more. I'm not drafting him in a 1 quarterback league, but I'd say keep an eye out. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Will Levis looks pretty good this year because he's surrounded by good weapons and a good coach, I think. So potentially a good coach. I don't know if there's much else to add there, Dad. What's your opinions on Will Levis? You think he could be a pretty good quarterback in this league, or?
Yeah, he could. I think, there was a lot of crap talking about him at the draft, and he had good-looking girls around him, and he flexes for Instagram pictures. So, I mean, it all started with that, and then he didn't look too bad on the field. I mean, he didn't look terrible. Tennessee's offense has been around Derrick Henry, for years, and even when Tannehill was the quarterback, it just, he was just a guy, kind of, and so I mean that's the way I look at his stats from last year. It's kind of like he was in kindergarten for an NFL quarterback. So now hopefully offensive minded coach, who's coached Joe Burrow and stuff like that. Maybe they can get, a real NFL offense. So maybe some of these numbers would improve.
Yeah, I agree. I agree there for sure. I mean, just look at Cincinnati last year, 61, almost 62% pass rate, which was tied for second most in the NFL. In 2022, 60.5% pass rate, which was top 6. So they're going to pass the ball 60% of the time. Just what they're going to do. And Henry's no longer there. If I told you so you had DeAndre Hopkins, who had 1,000 yards last year, Chig Okonkwo, their tight end. Who was number 3 on this team in yards, if you had to guess? And I don't expect you to get it. I'll just say that.
I have no idea. I can't even.
Chris Moore was number 3. He's been in the league since 2016, and last year was his second best year of 400 yards. receiving. Like that's who he was throwing the ball to. It was Hopkins, and old Hopkins, who I still think has something in the tank. We'll get to that. It was Chigakonkwo, who's just a tight end. He's a solid tight end, but he's just a tight end. Tajay Spears out of the backfield, and then it was guys like Chris Moore and Nick Westbrook-Akine. So, of course, he was taking a lot of sacks because those guys can't get open. The weapons around him have changed, and we'll get to that. Starting with Tony Pollard. So, yeah, Will Levis, keep an eye on him. If he's doing well, you'll pick him up. Don't draft him, though. Tony Pollard is their new addition. He was one of the first free agents to sign. I think the second running back to sign. They gave him a good contract. Everyone was so disappointed with Tony Pollard last year. You look at the numbers, he was 22nd in points per game. It wasn't a complete bust. He was still a low-end RB2. We were all just expecting, he was 8th in points per game with Zeke in 2022. We were expecting number 1 overall running back stuff. Didn't happen at all. Was a disappointment in that regard. It's interesting to know, remember he broke his leg late in the season in 2022. He did mention it was like late in the season, week 12, 13, where he finally felt 100% from that. And from that point on, I think he was PFF's number 1 graded rusher in the entire NFL. So was he telling the truth? Maybe. Was it an excuse? Maybe. I don't know. But I think it was week 12 or 13 in which he said that. So he's an interesting one. He's all the way down to round 7 now. There's another running back that we need to talk about who could be kind of the 1B of this backfield. But I'll start off by saying I think I'm okay with Pollard here. I think he's better with less touches, as we've seen in the past. I don't want him touching the ball 300 times. I think I want him touching the ball 220 times. Touches and catches, 220 to 250, not 300. So I'm okay with this. I think he can thrive even in a situation where he's not going to be the workhorse, which kind of seems like that's how it's going to be with him and Tajay Spears. Kind of like in preseason, it wasn't drive to drive. It was like 2 plays to Pollard, 2 plays to Spears, 1 play to Pollard, 1 play to Spears. I hope they don't run it that way, but even if they do a 50-50 split, I think Pollard can be good. Are you just out on him? You don't want to take a risk on him again, or do you think he can be good in this?
No, I would take a risk on him, and like anything else, it's always where you can get them. I mean, it's kind of hard to process. Okay, what is going to be the difference between Pollard and Spears? And I don't know. Maybe if this guy, I mean, Pollard's kind of proven it. Spears is the up and coming guy. So I mean, Pollard had an okay year. I don't know what everybody was thinking just because he was the man in Dallas last year. He still had good numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And he had over 1,000 yards. He caught over 50 passes. It's like, the hell do you need, But I think everybody's expectations were a little high and stuff like that. But it didn't seem right. He was just the guy in Dallas, instead of sharing backfield duties. But I'm all right with Tony Pollard.
Yeah, me too. I think the difference in ADP between Pollard and Spears, who we're going to get into here, is 20 picks, 2 rounds. And the reason I think is because we've seen Pollard do it in a limited role, like not being the main and only guy. And we haven't seen Spears do it, but they kind of feel like the same player. Very good pass catchers, can be efficient guys who don't need 300 touches, who can both do it on 200 with 40, 50 catches. So I'm fine with Pollard. I think this offense is going to be good. I think they're going to pass it a lot. Tajay Spears is the other one who they talk about them like they are the same player. And Tajay Spears is just, he hasn't proven it. Now, sneaky players to catch 50 passes last year, Samaje Perine. Tajay Spears is also in that list. Caught 50 passes. Took Derrick Henry off the field a lot. He outsnapped Derrick Henry last year a lot. Only had 100 carries, but averaged 4.5 yards per attempt. He kind of feels like Pollard, who Pollard was with Zeke for a couple of years there before Pollard really took a big role. I like both these guys. I don't necessarily want both of them because I do think it's going to be a 50-50 split, but I like both of them. If I can get one of them, I'm happy with it because I think both can be good on limited roles because they're going to catch 40, 50 passes, maybe each and be efficient runners. So what about Spears? Are you there with him too? 2-round discount on him.
I kind of feel the same way. I think Tajay Spears will. Remember hearing something about him though, like he doesn't have a ACL or something
He
like
has the
that.
Todd Gurley knees. So
Yeah,
he might have a short
it's like,
career.
oh boy, but we'll see. It's a second year. Made it through last year okay, and he's going to be get a little more attention and stuff like that. And I think you're pretty correct when you say Pollard and Spears. They're kind of the same back a little bit, same guy. So
Yep. And they drafted a left tackle, J.C. Latham. They've gone back-to-back offensive linemen in the drafts, Skoronski and J.C. Latham. His Bill Callahan is the offensive line coach, and he's like a legitimate offensive line coach. Like he's like one of the few that like make a huge difference for their teams, So, he was the Browns offensive line coach forever. So I think he's going to do wonders, which is going to be great for them. I just think this offense we're kind of underestimating because they have players, man. They have Pollard, Tajay Spears, Calvin Ridley, who I put him in the same kind of boat as Pollard. You look at his numbers last year, it's like actually he wasn't. You would think he was just a complete bust. He was wide receiver 26 in points per game. He had 1,000 yards last year. He had a bunch of targets. Him and Trevor Lawrence just seem off. They just couldn't get on the same page. But he still had 136 targets, 76 catches, which is not a great number for percentage-wise. 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. It's just that we were overinflating the guy. We talked about it last year. We think we're kind of overinflating a guy that didn't play football for almost 2 years, and it kind of looked like he didn't play football for a couple of years. And now they probably overpaid Calvin Ridley, but he got a big paycheck. I kind of like Calvin Ridley. No, I think I like the Titans offense to over exceed expectations, and none of their offensive players are being drafted in the top 6 rounds. So I think that's why I kind of like them. I don't know. I think I will take a chance on at least one team drafting Calvin Ridley. He's in that Jaden Reed, Xavier Worthy, Deontay Johnson kind of tier. And I just think he has some upside here. And I really do. I think he has some upside, has a season under his belt. He was already a 1,000-yard guy last year. And hopefully they'd use him better in a better role. So you might be out on that. Not sure, but.
Yeah, I'm not Ridley. I don't know. He's, of course, his best year is with Atlanta, and, everybody kind of knows the story. I'm not really high on him.
Yeah. Just because you thought he disappointed last year?
I think so. I'm not sure. There was more of an expectation, I guess, and
But isn't that our fault?
I guess round 7. So what is he, like a wide receiver 3?
I mean, it depends on how you draft, but theoretically he could be your wide receiver 4 or 5. Unless you want to take quarterbacks and tight ends in the first 7 rounds, like if you go running backs and wide receivers, he could be a bench guy. Like,
then
like a
then
bench
I
wide
have
receiver.
different thought process then.
It's like, do you want him versus Jaden Reed? Who do you want there? Because I'm going Ridley.
Probably Calvin Ridley, yeah.
Reed versus Worthy is an interesting one if you want maybe the upside of the unknown for Worthy. Right? Deontay Johnson or Calvin Ridley. I think there's more upside with Ridley. More safer floor. And then you get guys like Rome Odunze, Christian Watson. So, like, he's going in a range where I don't see a whole lot of upside except for Ridley. So that's why I kind of like him. DeAndre Hopkins is still on this team, is a professional, very good wide receiver, still had 1,000 yards last year. I still think DeAndre Hopkins has it. I think You see there, he's going around 9. I drafted a team already. I got him around 10, which is just insane to me. Like DeAndre Hopkins around 10 is, even if he only plays like half a season, there's still value there. Again, I like the value. How I look at the Titans is I definitely want a piece of this offense, and I'm happy with getting Pollard, Spears, Ridley, or Hopkins. I'm really happy with all 4 of them where they're going. I don't think any of them are overvalued. So Hopkins is old. He is. You see the age there. He's over 32 years old. He still showed he was pretty good last year. So he doesn't have to be the number 1 guy. It can be Ridley. I know he had the knee injury, but it sounds like he's going to be ready for week 1. So I still like Hopkins. He might not be there because of the age, and he has been injured the last couple of years. So that's definitely something to bring up there. Where are you at with Hopkins?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just think he's
too old.
Yeah, kind of getting there. He's probably going to catch quite a few passes and stuff like that. So, I'm not.
If he's healthy for, let's just say he plays 15 games, do you really see him falling outside of the top 40 wide receivers?
He shouldn't.
Which means all he basically needs to do that is get like 800 yards and 70 catches or something and 4 or 5 touchdowns, right? So I guess that's what, and I still think there's upside. Like, I still think he can be a little bit better. I think he can be a wide receiver, a solid wide receiver 3 that you kind of start week in and week out. And just like, again, getting him around 10, I think is a little bit crazy, which is where I got him and where you potentially could get him. So round 10 is 120 picks. So you're talking about him versus guys like Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Tyler Lockett. Like, there's no competition, in my opinion. It's Hopkins.
No, not guys. Really. No.
What about Hopkins versus, Cortland Sutton, Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas? I still am leaning Hopkins. So it sounds like you're a little bit lower on the Titans offense, maybe because of Levis has to make this all go. If Levis can't, then there's an issue, right? And that's a big question mark for sure.
Yeah. I kind of agree, and yeah, if Hopkins has a similar year like he did last year, it's like, okay, not bad, 7 touchdowns, and the volume of receptions was down a little bit, but that could change if Levis has matured and gotten better and stuff like that. So
I just so the third wide receiver on this team is Tyler Boyd. I typed it. I thought I remember him getting injured, and I typed in Tyler Boyd injury, and apparently there's a MLS soccer player named Tyler Boyd for Nashville, which is funny because they're both in Tennessee, and he tore his ACL like in July, and so I saw that. I was like, Tyler Boyd tore his ACL. What? But he's not injured, right? I mean, I don't think he is.
No, I don't think so either.
Do I just have the wrong? That's his name, right? Okay, I'm just double checking. I have the right name. I'm not just butchering the name. I don't think he's injured at all. So I'm going to see if he's playing in preseason. But it's part of the reason why I'm kind of a little bit in on Levis and this offense is just because just look at the weapons like Pollard, Spears, Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd. Yeah, they're older on the wide receiver core. They're all professional players that can catch passes and things like that. Yeah, Tyler Boyd was playing, so he's not hurt. And even the tight end, and Chig Okonkwo is a good pass-catching tight end. Like, there's a lot of weapon. If they can protect Will Levis, this team could be sneaky good. They really could offensively. So I'm kind of in on them. I want a piece of 1 or 2 guys, honestly, because they're all good values. So that's kind of where I'm at. Chig Okonkwo is the tight end. He's not really being drafted. He's barely being drafted. I'd probably pass just because Boyd kind of ruins that a little bit. New coaching staff. Don't know how they're going to – if Okonkwo – Okonkwo is kind of one of those players where it feels like because he's not a big blocking tight end, if he doesn't fit your system and what you want to do, he could just lose a lot of playing time, even if it's like losing it out to guys who aren't as good pass catchers as them, they might look at it and say, hey, we got 2 good pass catching running backs, 3 good pass catching receivers. We need a tight end that can block. We don't care about you catching passes. So I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a pretty big hit in terms of his usage. But overall, I'm calling it now. Titans are going to be a top 15 offense. Is that a bold take or no? Should I say 12? Top 12 offense in points per game. I'm calling it now.
The Titans, man,
Titans.
I don't see that.
I think the coach, they're going to protect Will Levis. That's all he needs. He needs some protection and get the ball to these guys. A lot of playmakers here on offense. Like, again, just like think of how many guys, just think of other teams and we're talking about them. And like they have 1 or 2 guys. Okay. This team they're deep. Like all their starting guys, like they have 6 guys who are talented at catching the ball, in my opinion. So there you have it. I don't think they're necessarily going to win a lot of games, but I think they're going to be a pretty good offense. I think they're going to be sneaky good team. So there you have it. We will be back with the last episode, the Washington Commanders. We did it. Sucks for Commanders fans. You have to wait this long, but maybe we'll change it up. We'll go reverse alphabetical order next year. But anyways, we will see you all in that video.